I mean, when people say Saudi and women driving, I think they just think, oh, they just started driving. And then here you are driving everything everywhere and being first at everything. It's really, really cool. So first of all, let's just go back to what it was like when you were growing up. And if this was an idea in your mind then, or what was going on then?
Well, I have been driving for a while, and to be honest, I love it. I'll drive anything, anywhere, that's for sure. When I was growing up, I didn't have an idea that I would be doing this, let's say, sort of as a profession, because, I just honestly didn't think about it as a potential career path at all. I just thought that, okay, it's the weekend, let's go play with some quad bikes. I actually really enjoy this. Let's have fun, and that was it. It was very simple. When I lived, I'm from Jeddah, and I studied here until I was 14. And then I went to the UK for GCSE, A-level, and then university. So during that time, I got my driving license. So I was driving on the public road abroad. So I think that's a big reason why also I was, started racing maybe sooner than other ladies here, because I had the exposure to the public road from an earlier age. So when I was about 30 years old, I moved to Dubai for work. And that's when I started racing. I went to the Dubai Autodrome, the racetrack there. And there I was on super bikes. So 2 wheels, and just really enjoying it. They have something called the Ducati Cup as part of the National Sports Bike Super Series. And I love that bike just as a style of riding and things like that. So I joined the Ducati Cup. I enjoyed it very much. I also joined the cup in Bahrain, the national cup there, which was the Superstock 600. And I was on a Kawasaki in that cup. And I also had a really good time. After that, I moved to rally, which is off-road, which is what you see me doing today. And that was mainly because I am from Saudi Arabia. I moved back to Saudi Arabia in 2019, the end of 2019. And Saudi hosts some of the biggest events in the world when it comes to rally race. So the biggest race is Dakar Rally. That's the longest race in the world for cross country. And that's actually hosted here in Saudi Arabia. So I would say that that's the main reason why I started driving off-road. But when I moved to off-road, I let go of 2 wheels and I jumped into a 4-wheel vehicle. So I'm in what they call a side-by-side car, or an SSV. And they are these dune buggies or off-road buggies, which technically our group is called the Lightweight Prototype, T3. So different teams can work on their cars and customize them and use different parts from different manufacturers and make their own prototype. So it's a really fun category because you get to see so much variety. So that's it. That's how I started and how I ended up in this situation.
And you had an accident on your motorcycle, right? Can you tell us?
I did. It wasn't actually a bad accident. It was on the racetrack, and I didn't need any surgeries or anything like that. So, when you come off a motorcycle in a racetrack and you just need a couple of months to kind of heal your bones and just have a natural recovery, I mean, I personally consider that a lucky situation. I don't think of it as a big crash. I think that I was lucky, and it just happened. I leaned the bike too far on a corner, so I didn't have the power to pick it back up after the corner, which meant that I just slid onto the track. But I suppose the impact had hurt my pelvis area, but I was fine because I didn't need surgery, which was good. So 2 months of natural recovery, and by then I was back in Saudi Arabia. And it was also at the time when the border closures had started because of the pandemic. So all over the world, people were not traveling. And that also kind of pushed me to look into the kingdom, what's available for me to race in Saudi. So a lot of these, circumstantial things kind of led me to cross country and off-road and, racing in the desert as opposed to being on the track. And definitely the accident was one of those things, but not in a dramatic sense. It was much more about, okay, I crashed my bike, I ended up back home, and back home we race off-road. So Not to say that they won't have track racing. I think they might, and I think they will. But at the time, that was the situation.
And when you're racing, are you racing against other women? Are there other women in the field? Are you, you're the first to be winning these things, but is there a field of other women?
Yeah, there's women in the field for sure. Actually, it's a really nice community. And what's nice about motorsport is that you have men and women racing together. It's an engine sport. It's not physical. I mean, it is physical, but you're competing with an engine. You're not competing with just your body, right? So that's why you compete together, men and women. So it's not segregated. And I think that's really a nice environment. It's I see women from all over the world participating. Definitely that they're a minority. There's much more men than there are women. But it's fun. It's becoming more common. I think, I see more ladies getting out there. One of the ladies that I got to know through the rally community actually decided to do the races in a big truck, which is called the T5 group. And she told me that she wants to do it with a female navigator and a female mechanic, because with the big trucks, you're actually 3 people in the car, not 2. So with our cars, you're 2 people. You're the driver and the navigator. With trucks, you have a third person with you who's a mechanic. So there's one lady who's now going for a ladies truck. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
Tell me about the car that you drive. Like, how does it get built? Where do you get it? What do you like about it?
It's so I work with a team called South Racing, and they are based in Germany and Portugal, and they have Can-Am cars, which is a Canadian manufacturer, and then they build them to racing specs based on their own research and development. So I enjoy that car very much, and I've been consistent with South Racing for about a full season, and now we're into our second. My first season I did with renting a local car here in Saudi. And then when I went to the European races, I rented a car from a French team there. But near the end of the year, I decided that I will start racing with South Racing so that they build the cars. They're a successful team. They've been winning consistently in the field. So I'm glad to be with them.
And do you do this full time, or do you work and do this part time? Like, how does it work?
Since I started, when I was racing bikes, I did it part time. And when I started, I moved into cross country. I picked it up as full time because between, working with the sponsors and finding the funding and then going to the events and the logistics and things like that, you could definitely do this with a full time job as well, 100%. But I wanted to focus on it personally.
Is there money in this? Like, could you make serious money?
I think that depends. Some people do it for leisure. Some people drive for the manufacturers. So it's really different for everybody in the space. I don't think that there's a universal thing going on. But I think some people make money. Some just do it as a hobby. So it depends.
What does your family think and your friends and?
So I think everybody has their own view. Could be different. For me, I just seem to be, getting support, and everybody's nice, and everybody's different, really. I think.
It sounds like when you were young, you were like when I was growing up, we called it a tomboy. Like you were riding those quad bikes and everything. Were you a bit of a tomboy?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know. I
just mean like. Some girls are like playing with dolls and doing stuff like that. Were you doing both things? Like, did you like to do?
I like to play with Barbies with my sister. I don't find this either or. I think that it's really nice to play with dolls and go shopping with your mom, and that's really nice. Go do your nails. I think that's fun, right? You go to a spa or whatever. And then I like to drive. So I don't really see it as, okay, you either have this totally rigid definition of what it is to have a girly or boyish activity. I think that you can have a nice manicure and get on a bike. I think it's okay.
It is okay. It is okay. I feel like in this part of the world, it might still be a little bit more segregated, like it's sort of like pink or whatever, but I like to see it. I like to see both. You can have a manicure. You are a manicured driver. So tell me about these races. What are the challenges? What's the stuff that's super hard that we wouldn't think about?
I don't know if it's a woman thing, but with races like this, it's an endurance race. So you have to have a good organization of your, let's say, emotions, right? So maybe the most important thing is actually just to stay in the moment and stay present on the kilometer at hand. Because if you start thinking about the end of the race, first of all, you won't enjoy the race as much because you'll be less present. And also you'll be less effective in terms of performance, because when you are in the moment, you perform much better because you are totally engaged, right? And you are contributing every part of your energy towards the outcome. When you think about the outcome, you effectively make the outcome worse because you take your focus away. I think it's very important to stay focused. And that's something that you can build. Focus is not something that is just constant all your life. If we see it, if let's say you go through a phase where you stop reading, to come back to reading, it's going to be difficult to focus on, the page. You may have to reread it. But if you're consistently reading, just as an example, you'll find that it's actually much easier to get through a whole chapter without stopping. So focus is a very big part of the game. I think patience is equally important in the game as well, because it's such a long race. You have to be patient, not only in terms of reaching the finish, because you want to enjoy it anyway. Sometimes when you finish, you think, oh, I'd like to drive a bit more. But patience is important in terms of being patient with yourself. So if you make a driving mistake, you need to have the patience to let it go, accept it, and then continue driving. Because if you carry that mistake with you for longer, you're going to make your time worse, right? You have to be patient sometimes with crossing the terrain. So in cross country, you can face a lot of rocky areas or tricky areas to navigate. And sometimes it's actually much more effective just to take it a bit slower. And that way you move smoother through the area than somebody who might just be in a rush to finish because they feel uncomfortable that this is now very tricky. So patience and focus are huge assets. I would say that they would be the top things that come to mind.
It sounds like there's real parallels for life, from your experience behind the wheel. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I mean, the things that you pick up in racing, you can implement across a lot of different parts of your life. It's more about your character. I mean, when I talk to the people who are at the front, they have a specific character quality. This one person that is a total champion, wins very consistently and frequently. When I speak to him, I feel like he's very present. I also feel like he has all the time in the world to have this conversation, whatever it is that we're talking about. And that's a feeling that you get that's calm, that's, steady and solid. I think you need that in the car. And then it's reflected outside of the car. He won't sit and talk to me forever. Of course, he has a lot to do. But when we end the chat, it's very much at the point where we're done, and it's not done with urgency. I don't feel that he spent 5 minutes thinking he needs to leave. No. As soon as he's done or we're done, it's finished. And it's very clear, he's very clear about where he needs to be and why he's there. I respect that a lot. I think that that's very reflective of how you race.
Do you need to work out? Like, does physical fitness help you in this? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this is processing a lot of information at a very high rate and making decisions with that information. So when you are physically fit, you have more mental clarity. So you need less, you have a lot more oxygen in your body, and your respiratory rate is at a certain number. So you can see things with more clarity. You can process things more easily. I think when your cardiovascular system isn't so, let's say, I don't know, in shape or whatever you want to call it, it makes the information that's jumping at you a lot more muddled. You can't process it as well because you are not getting enough oxygen into your body, into your brain. So the picture is more distorted and there's just a bit of chaos. When you're in good shape, you have good cardiovascular system, then you can see things more clearly, and actually everything seems a bit slower. So you have more time to make decisions. That makes you a faster driver. So I always tell myself that if things seem slower, it's usually because you're going faster. If things seem like it's chaos and everything is so fast and rushing by, chances are you're not going very fast. You're going too fast for what your brain can process. And that's never a good feeling. So if I feel like there's chaos and I can't process what's happening, you've got to slow down. It's not safe to drive when you feel like you are fast. You will feel fast, but you have to have this calm. You have to be aware of your speed. I'm not sure how to articulate it, but the information that's coming at you when you're in high speeds shouldn't feel as fast as you might be going.
Okay. And how about the relationship with your navigator? Because you have a French navigator, I believe. That must be a tricky relationship.
Yeah, actually, my navigator, the French one, he passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Sorry. I'm terribly
he was in
sorry.
Yeah, I know it's okay. I mean, it's his time. He was in a race and there was just a bit of an accident there. But it is a very important relationship. You know, he taught me a lot about trust and about having a good time. You know, he was such a good navigator and a good mechanic and a good teammate because he knew how to get from A to B. So he knew, how to navigate, which is obviously a given. But more than that, what I liked about him so much, he was the first person I co-drove with, and he had a very good way of seeing things in the right priority. So basically, if we had a lot of media or PR to do, he would say, Dania, let's just don't worry about it. Just focus on the race. Don't think about it too much. You do the media. When you do the media, you have the interviews. When you have the interviews, don't worry about it. When you drive, you just drive. So he had that ability to kind of just come back into the car, And then if I felt like I had a lot of pressure, if I was scared because it was my first race or second race or whatever, he would remind me again, just have a good time, just take it easy. And then a big thing he used to always say was that just take it slow. He always said, when you take it slow, you go fast. And he was right, so don't rush, just take it slow. And I mean, slow is a weird word to use in racing. But what he means by slow is that you don't feel too fast. So the more experienced you are, slow will be faster, right? But for your brain, it feels slow because you can see all this information and you can. So he always reminded me, just take it easy and have a good time. Just enjoy. That was his biggest emphasis, was just to enjoy. That's really important. When you have fun, you do well. And maybe it's a cliche. Maybe people say all the time that you have to enjoy the journey, but it's true. When you have a good time, you tend to do well. And our last race, actually, we did extremely well. And then the second day, our car broke down. And it was tough to take because we were on the way to lead the World Cup at that stage, and that would have been really great because it's early in the season. It would have been nice to have that kind of level of comfort. But it is what it is. It happened. The car broke down, and it's part of the game. It happens. And he just said, I'm so sorry. I don't understand what happened, but it was fun. I said, yeah, it was fun. We had a good time. And then it actually was still fun because when we fixed the car, we had to make it to the finish line within the maximum time because you have a maximum time. So our race became not against any other competitor. It was actually just us against maximum time. So we were still racing. So we still enjoyed it, funnily enough, even though, we could have had we were on track to have a different result. But the level of trust I had in him was so big and so subconscious that even when he started giving me directions, I wouldn't even think about what he's saying. It was like my body would just do what he said, So he would tell me, because we decide the direction. We have a compass heading. So if we're going at 150 and he says to me, okay, Dania, in 300 meters, we're going to shift to 210. Without even thinking, my brain would just start, turning the steering wheel to the right to go towards 210 because I trusted him so much that I would just do everything that he said as a navigator. So it's almost like you were one system. And that's a really good feeling to have. I didn't Yeah, I mean, I knew I knew what we had when we had it. So it's nice to understand when you have such a good working relationship. I have a co-driver now named Tay Perry. She's very sweet. We did the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge together in February. Um, because Laurent, the French co-driver, is usually busy half of the year. So I need somebody to race with for the other half. And I tested with Tay in Abu Dhabi, and I really enjoyed working with her. So we'll race together from now on, you know, for the full thing. But it is a very important dynamic. Yes.
So you have someone, so you don't have to start from scratch. That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got a bunch of messages when he passed, people, you know, trying to help me out and say, hey, there's this person, that person. Maybe you feel a bit discombobulated, you feel a bit, but, you know, I tell myself, I mean, he has a family, you know, I can't imagine the family. We're working partners, and it's an important relationship to have. But yeah, I feel a lot for his family. I hope that they manage.
And I suppose that danger, the possibility of that danger, is a part of the attraction, but also, do you think about it? Like, do you ever feel fear?
I'm not attracted to danger. I think people tend to associate driving with adrenaline junkies. I don't see that I'm interested in adrenaline rush. People tell me I am. Between me and myself, I don't look for it. I feel very stimulated when I drive, you know, and that's what I like. It's not the danger. It's more just that I'm so consumed, you know, so much of me is focused and engaged. I don't feel that when I do a lot of things. I feel that when I drive. So I'm not too attracted to danger. It's more just the feeling of being so consumed. You can drive in a safe way. You don't have to drive dangerously. And I usually drive in a safe way. I don't feel moments where, oh, what's going to happen now? I don't know. If I have that feeling, it's usually because I made a driving mistake and I'm now vulnerable to the terrain. And that shouldn't happen, actually. If I feel that way, it's because I messed up. So I consciously stay within the parameters that I'm comfortable in. And those parameters change because the more experience you have, the faster you can go. So you don't need to take risk. You don't need to drive dangerously. If you feel like you're in danger, it shouldn't be because you wanted to be there. It should be just because you need to sharpen your skills, or maybe you've gone over the limit and you need to bring yourself back. So danger is definitely not something that I'm drawn to. It's more just a byproduct of your lack of skill at a certain point in time. And then you need to work on it, and you need to make sure you stay within your limits and grow safely, which is possible.
And what are your dreams? Like, what's your wildest dreams in this? What are your goals and dreams?
I'm not thinking too far ahead. It's we're still just taking it as it comes. I have 2 more Dakars to do so far, and 2 more Saudi championships, and 1 more Baja World Cup, excluding this year. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a good schedule for now.
Do you have any driving pet peeves in other people?
No, I know. No, I don't.
Okay. And I guess there's a lot of, I know from living in this part of the world, I'm in Abu Dhabi, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it's like for women in the West. And so I'm just wondering if there's any misconceptions about what it's like for women in Saudi that you wanted, like you hear or you like to dispel. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I think that different people have different experiences. You know, different Saudis have different lives depending on their culture, their family culture, their choices. So there's no correct way of being a Saudi. You know, we're all from here and we're different and we live how we want to live. I personally want to drive. It's my choice. I want to race. My sister, who's from the same household, chooses not to do that. So I think you'll find variety in any country. And if there's a more prominent image of that country, then, I mean, maybe there's a reason for it. So what I do is I live my life, how I live my life. And then when people meet me, they maybe have a more evolved version of Saudi. Not to say that the other image isn't there, but that there's more to it. There's more variety. There's different ways of being, and yeah, it doesn't mean that this cancels out the other, right? Just different families live live differently. I think that's the reality of things. If I meet a person from Italy, I don't think that everybody in Italy is a replica of that person. So yeah, I mean, it's normal for us as people to kind of have an idea of a nation after we've met one person. I think that that's normal because that person kind of has a sample representation of the whole thing, the population. But I try to remind myself that probably you'll find a lot of variety. Yeah, so I think that you'll find a lot of different things going on here.
Yes, I have yet to be. I'm supposed to come in the fall. I'm really excited. Are women, how, when it came to driving, like, is it, or did every woman that you know drive? Is it like half the women? Are you able to talk about that? I'm just curious.
Not every woman I know drove, but a lot of them did. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a really freeing thing. It was such a good feeling. And we all got so excited. You know, I mean, I had access to a car before and somebody would take me from A to B, but it's different when you don't have to have that, someone involved and maybe you feel bad about doing 3 trips. Maybe you'll just do 1 trip and, you know, you kind of adapt to the other person because that's how it is. I mean, you're not just going to get in the car every time you have a thought, but today you can. I mean, as long as you can pay for your petrol, then you can get in the car whenever you want. So it's a good feeling. A lot of ladies did drive, but not all of them. Some of them weren't interested. I mean, some people just don't want to drive. I mean, it's fine. You know, there's other ways of getting around. But it was an impactful change.
Is it become normal now, or do you ever just catch yourself driving and think, this feels good still?
I love to drive. Every time I get in the car and I drive, I know that I love it. It's weird. I mean, it doesn't get old because you only have the moment. So yeah, I don't, if you're present, you'll always feel very clearly what you do, you know, and I always feel that way. Today I was in the car and I was away for a couple of weeks and I was thinking, oh, I miss this. I miss the car. I had a good time. But I usually feel that way about whatever I'm doing. I don't, if you're in the moment, then you'll always feel it, you know?
Yeah, I get it. That's one of my favorite feelings is driving down the highway. I absolutely love it. And everyone was cheering for you guys when you got that opportunity. And so it's so cool to see. Okay. Any parting words? Anything I haven't asked you? I'm sure there's lots I haven't asked you, but just anything about the sport that you'd like me to know or about you?
Just honestly, thank you so much for your time. This was really nice and just thanks for having me.
It's really exciting. I'm going to be following your career.
Thanks.
Even though I don't know anything about that. Now I kind of think I want to drive a dune buggy type car.
If you're in Abu Dhabi, it's not hard.
How do you get started?
If Abu Dhabi, I would just look at local places.
No, but like just in general, if a woman's interested in what you're doing, what would you say the best way to get started is?
Probably to get in touch with the Federation for Motorsport because they usually have programs or access to the sport, and that's what I did. I got in touch with the Motorsport Federation.
Thank you so much, Dania.
Thank you. Thanks so much.